We are entered there, but we have to use the we can walk.
Moss, stay aside. Can you come in from the side?
Sorry?
Thank you. Thank you.
Siamona akismaila hata hapana. Hapana, wewe una smile nini zaidi?
Tungoje.
Here, we are sitting in front. Asante, asante.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Happening because when you are campaigning, everybody wants to associate with you as your first lady. So my husband kept on insisting, you must come home, you must be seen, I must be seen to have a wife and to just have a decent wife. So I will fast forward to your friends, you were chair, and then later chairman. But to me, you were always honey or darling. But when Rachel came up as the first child, honey, darling got out of the way, it became Mama Rachel and Mama Rachel. So that is how we all acquired those titles. In the early days of our life, we had only one car, until later when we realized having a second car was more of a necessity than a luxury. Every morning, you would drop me at the district treasury where I worked and pick me up in the evening. I recall one of those days, as a young married couple, we had a disagreement. And I gave you the silent treatment of, as you took me to work, of kneel by mouth. We were not talking. So when we were not talking, it was always kneel by mouth. When you came to pick me up in the evening, you saw me from a distance, laughing heartily, chatting, and very excited. When I got into the car, I instantly resumed my kneel by mouth. Remember, carry forward from morning. You looked at me and said, was that you I just saw, or was it someone else who looked exactly like you? Happy and cheerful, and now you are kneel by mouth. Of course, that broke the ice, and we continued talking. So he had a way of bringing me back whenever we had disappointments. As an advocate, he often had cases outside Mombasa, and would ask me to accompany him. I vividly recall a trip to Embu, where you designated me as your driver, so you could prepare your case. Preparing the case was an excuse. He just wanted me to do the driving and to accompany him. At the time, I thought it was simply about work, but over time, I realized it was much more. He wanted us to bond and get close to each other. And that is how we got close, because Rachel came 2 years later after our marriage. Those 2 years were real bonding years. When I was transferred from Mombasa to Nairobi, because I overgrew my seniority, so I was taken to Nairobi. And being a Bukusu man, there was no way I could force you to join me, or even a Luya man. So I found a way. I started slowly pulling out the children. So I pulled Rachel to Nairobi, then I pulled Jonathan, and you heard Emmanuel say how they remained the two of them, and they realized they just have to come to Nairobi. That's how my husband ended up coming to Nairobi. And eventually, I saw the team of Kuto there. He now opened, became the managing partner, and opened their Nairobi branch. Many people assumed I was the talkative one in our marriage. No. This man spoke more than I did. You will not believe it. He spoke more than I did, he chatted more than I did. And the people who actually know that, who gave the tribute that is really applicable to the gentleman here, was the IBC, where he spent 6 years at the helm. To him, that was his second family. He protected them, and they are here. He ensured that he gave them their best coverage. And I was so encouraged when they came home, almost 150 of them. They had a ceremony, lit candles, and the tributes we had were spot on. That is exactly my husband. IBC, you got it right. That is him. Yes, thank you very much. So the only thing I've not done, because Chairman had a habit of starting things, he starts projects, and then he dumps them on me because he knows I'll run with them. But one thing we've not been able to do with him was to do the PhD. We kept on arguing who would start their PhD first among the 5 of us. It's still a challenge, but for me, I don't think it adds any value. So the challenge is among the 3. So he encouraged me. You have heard about our career. You often set that difficult task. I have just told you that. My husband was so generous, so generous. His generosity was to the extent that when he traveled out of the country, he thought the more expensive was the best. So he would bring me very expensive things, which sometimes I would not be able to wear. But I would have to pretend that they are very nice and they are very good. But for him, he picked price first, then quality. Because for him, he believed it's the best when it's the most expensive. So I enjoyed a lot of your gifts, which I know now I will not be able to have them. So after your first surgery, you went about life as if nothing had happened, and you have had that. Playing golf and doing everything he could. The children stepped in, they would accompany him. We used to work in shifts, as Emmanuel had mentioned. At no time after his first surgery did the gentleman here remain on his own. We did shifts. If it was in Germany, we went in shifts. Emmanuel, being self-employed, spent more time. The rest of us would do at least 2 weeks whenever we're required. And when he started ailing, the same thing happened. Despite the fact that he had 24-hour nursing care and aid care, we ensured that each of us had shifts. And if I had to go away, because CRA demanded of me to travel, Rachel, thanks to her bosses, would take leave and come and step in my position. This gentleman, I cannot say more, he was a man of integrity. He hated, he despised liars or lies. He couldn't stand a lie. He just could not stand anybody lying around him. In fact, his favorite verse, Mark 8:36, he loved this verse. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? He really loved this verse. I cannot really end this all before speaking about August 22. There's so much to speak, but let me fast forward to August 15, 2022. Just before the results were announced. It was chaotic. But just around noon, a call came in, and the pastors wanted clearance at the gate. So they requested that the chair asked the protocol team to allow them to have quick, free access. So he was getting ready because he had come back very early in the morning of August 14th. I heard him telling his team that he would be announcing the results on that day at 3. He hadn't slept, so I forced him to sleep for at least 2-3 hours so that he could take a rest. And when he woke up, it was calls that kept waking him up, so he woke up and he was dressing. So as we were preparing him to dress, he kept on getting calls. And at one time, the security came in and said, I don't know who was waiting at the gate. We don't know who was waiting at the gate. But to fast forward, a call that came in was from the Archbishop Olesapit, requesting that the chair calls the gate to get clearance. Now, I overheard that conversation because he was busy dressing, so he was on speakerphone. And I said to him, why don't you ask the Archbishop to come home? And he says, why would he come home now? They are heading for, and I said, no, let him come home. It turned out there were 14 of them. So when they came home, a team of 14 came in. When they came, I just told them, I pray for the chair every morning. I used to pray for him every morning before he leaves the house, because the spiritual leaders had told me I am the Esther of this country. So I used to pray for him every morning, just at the door before he leaves. So that day I prayed for him. I couldn't pray. So when the Archbishop came, and the entire team, there were 14 of them, I said to them, I'm not able to pray. Can you please pray for this day? Can you please pray for the chairman? As he proceeds to go and announce the results. So he went, they came, they took 5 minutes to get home because we don't stay far from Bomas. And when they did not sit, they just stood up, prayed, and left. But I made sure before they left, the security team ensured the chairman was in the middle of this convoy. I don't know for what reason, but I just found myself insisting, telling the security guys to delay a bit because he had not fully dressed. He needed to dress up to prepare to go. So there he was in the middle of this convoy all the way to Bomas. When they got to Bomas, they believed this was the chairman's team, so they put them to sit at the back of the podium. The announcing the podium that they were going to announce the results. But ideally, they were supposed to sit on another platform, but they were made to sit at the back. To me, that was divine intervention, because when the fracas started, it was the men of God who were behind him. It was not any other person. It was the men of God who were sitting behind him. And I thank God for that day. And in the process of that fracas, you have had, we tried to reach him, we couldn't reach him. Somehow Rachel reached him. She was trying to tell him, I don't like the way you're speaking. Are you okay? People are saying you've been hijacked, whatever. And he said, you know, in his calm demeanor, he kept on saying, no, I'm okay. I tried to reach him. I put on my phones had been off. And the security, I told the security detail to just go to him to see if I could talk to him. He said, I asked him, is there anybody you're seeing around him that you think I know? He says, I'm seeing Bishop Oginde. So I told him, give Bishop Oginde the phone. And he gave him the phone, and I asked Bishop, I said to him, you know you're a man of God, don't lie to me.